Hello and welcome to SEO Hangouts with Josh Bachynski. I'm a Google top critiquer. Sorry, just a little joke for you. So welcome to SEO Hangouts with Josh Bachynski. That'd be me. It's a hangout where I provide all kind of SEO information and tips and news of what's going on in the industry. And today, I'm lucky enough to have with me some esteemed guests. I have Danny Palladian. How do you pronounce your last name, Danny?
Palladian.
There you go. Danny's got a very quiet microphone, so we have to listen very carefully to what he wants to say.
It's going to be very important when I talk.
Okay. And of course, we also have with us Steve. Steve, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Steve Bizens. I'm just a enthusiast and freelance web developer.
Fantastic. Thank you for joining us, Steve. And last but not least, of course, we have Gary, who is well known on many Hangouts. And today, actually, Gary is the one bringing us the story. And it's a very interesting story. It's something of a tale of woe. And I'm making jokes right now, but actually, it's not funny at all, actually, what's been going on. And so I'm gonna give it over to Gary in a couple seconds to explain what's been going on with his website and what he's been trying to do. But basically, the topic today is Google support or Google abuse. Is Google responsible for the comments that are made officially by Google semi-representatives, people who have top contributor status on the Google forum? Is Google responsible for this? What kind of liability does Google have for people speaking on their forums? What kind of support is Google offering, or these Google top contributors offering on their forums? And what is Gary? Where is Gary's site after all this? Has Gary gotten any support or been provided the support that he wants or needs? So, Gary, first let's talk about what's been going on with your site and how you went onto the Google forums and how you tried to talk about it there.
Sure. So, I mean, in short, the situation was that about 4 years ago, we were hit by the first iteration of Panda, and there really wasn't any sort of information or news that came out about it for a very long time. And the only avenue to find something out was to go to the Google forums and get some advice. And as soon as you went on there, it was pretty obvious that the people who are there to help have been inundated by so many people who have got problems mixed with numerous amounts of spammers, and they become tired of deciding to really help people. There's some good people on there, but there's some bad people, and there's a gang mentality when somebody feels that they've discovered something that you haven't told them.
Right.
But generally, there's a lot of information to give, so it's easy for you to miss something.
Right. So we're talking about the Google product forums, correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Right. Now, of course, everybody knows since Gamergate, and anyone who's been on the internet for any period of time knows full well that the internet is full of trolls, the internet is full of bullies, and with the safety, the supposed safety screen of no physical contact or not being face-to-face with somebody, quite often, obviously, people feel that they can lip off, and they lip off usually more extremely than they normally would. Would you agree this is usually the case?
It's absolutely what we've experienced, and it normally happens by one person starting and everybody else kind of choosing their sides, and once they've chosen their side, no matter what happens, they stick to it.
Right.
So then
now,
you just have this huge group mentality.
Yeah, I would agree. Now, would you say that when you went onto these Google forums, did you get any support from Google? Did you get any support from these people how to fix the problems with your site?
Absolutely. I think the problem was that I see on a continuous basis is there is generally one or two people that try to immediately derail the situation. And rather than reply to them, you have to almost ignore them so that the people who are there to genuinely help can actually give you help.
Right.
And when you do, we found one person to be incredibly helpful to us and really helped us along the way to getting where we needed to get to.
Right. But otherwise, and we're not going to name any names. We're not. I didn't blur out any names either. I'm going to show some screenshots of the support that people have been getting on the Google product forms. I have some screenshots, and we're going to show some examples. We're going to look at it and see how bad we think it is or good we think it is. But we're not going to mention any names particularly of these people, whether they gave good support or bad support. At the same time, I didn't blur them out either. So, you know, they're there. This is public. This is all in the public record. So I didn't blur out any names. I just highlighted some sections that I wondered what we thought, whether it was any good or not. Danny or Steve, do you guys have anything else to say about the Google product forms before we look at any particular examples?
Just one thing. I do find the same thing. I have one situation that I'm dealing with, and sometimes when you post on the Webmaster Forum, you try to make the question generic enough that you're trying to learn a concept, like if you're trying to learn how an algorithm works, and I find they always want you to paste your URL, but I always tend to avoid that because I'm asking a general question. I'm not asking what's your opinion of my website. I'm trying to learn something, and there's really resistant to that. The people that often answer the questions, they say, well, if you don't provide a URL, we can't help you. But I word the question so specifically, and I can post an example in the chat, that you don't need an example. But I'll try and get that in the chat so you can see what I mean.
Right. And, you know, on the one hand, you know, they want a screenshot, I suppose, so they can go back and check what you're doing and have a reference to give people support. But on the other hand, you know, and of course some of these people would deny what I'm about to say. Well, on the other hand, there are negative SEO concerns. Or there's just branding concerns, like you don't want to be associated with what's quickly becoming a very bad word, a spammer, which is an entirely subjective pejorative, which is hurled at people, you know, whether it's true or not, and whether it's true that it's bad or not, or should be used as a pejorative. But it's becoming a pejorative, it's used as a pejorative, and so you might not just want to post your URL simply because you don't want to be included in that category and get this kind of hoi polloi mob mentality kind of morality coming at you where you're a spammer, and then they start lipping off at you. And of course, you can also get another problem with posting your URL and versus asking a general question like Steve just said, is that if you post your URL, then suddenly you're going to get, whether you want it or not, you're going to get a bunch of crowdsourced SEO advice, which could be good, which could be bad. Oh, Gary has a twin. Gary, your twin is here.
My machine's having trouble, sorry.
Oh, no problem. So I was just mentioning that once you post your URL, I don't know how much of what Steve said you heard, but when you post your URL, you can get a bunch of advice, which may or may not be good advice, and may or may not be advice that you even wanted when you post your URL. So that could be a problem as well. And I'm looking for, on SEO Roundtable, there was a post where you posted, where Barry picked up your story. You were complaining about this to John Mueller on a Hangout. Barry Schwartz picked up this story and he posted it on SEO Roundtable. Barry is not here at the moment. Too bad he can't post it. And then you got a bunch of SEO advice on his post, which I posted. He said, she said. I posted that Gary didn't even want any SEO advice. We were talking about the support or lack of support he was getting. So anyway, that could be another problem of posting your URL.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the whole concept behind this was that I was just having a conversation with John, and then everybody else has decided to sort of jump on and help in some way for something else.
Help. But the problem is, again, it really is like jumping on. It really is. They start giving their SEO advice, and even the ones who are trying to be polite, maybe trying to help, maybe it's a little arrogant, dare I say that, to think that you want that help or need that help when you haven't explicitly asked for it. You know, maybe it's a little arrogant for me to say that, but maybe I'm not thinking of the right adjective. But it is a little bit on the conceited side to assume that one, you're in the spammer position, or you're in the position where you don't understand what's going on, and so you need that help. But I imagine some people wanted to do that in a very honest and open way of just trying to help you. Other people didn't. Other people are like, you're a spammer, blah, 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 that kind of thing.
Yeah, and actually, if you have a look, again, without naming names, you'll see that there is one or two Google top contributors that turned up, and one of them specifically was there to troll and to cause problems and to take my words that I'd said just sort of off the cuff to John Mueller as some kind of absolute fact, and that actually, if you have a look at what I said, it was very accurate, but they twisted the words around. And they were there, again, to just derail the conversation and try and get me agitated.
Right. So let's talk more about that then. So this is where this is going. So I have some actual examples here of the support. I'll use the adjective lightly, support. I have some actual examples of what, there's two Garys, of the actual examples of the support of the help that, Gary's left. Where'd you go? I'm going to mute you for a second, Gary.
No with the pad.
No problem. So I'm going to show you actual examples. We're going to look at them together here. We're going to see the kind of quality support that people are getting on the top contributor forums. So for example, if I share this here, so I was looking at Search Engine Roundtable, but that's not what I'm going to look at. So here's the, can you guys see this example here?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so here, I don't know who this is, but here's an example of the kind of support you will get on the Google product forums, and I've highlighted one that's good. And I'm just going to read it out, and this is this person's post, and it's a little bit rude, so I'll warn everyone, these are going to be very rude, but I'm going to read it out. So it says, he's saying, Google estimates, Google gives approximations, Google does this, Google doesn't do that. Then he asks, he or she asks, do you want me to go find some small retarded child with a speech impediment to help you understand? How about a lobotomized dead monkey? Would you be able to be taught by one of those? So, what are your guys' emotional opinion? How do you feel personally about that post? Do you think it's helpful? Do you think it's appropriate?
Yeah, I mean, this is really a large amount of the core abusers that end up being on there that then encourage others to follow a path. And it's disgraceful to see this kind of thing, but this is what creates the these two paths. Unfortunately, there's probably only a handful of people that really act like this, and I believe this particular user was actually banned.
Right.
Oh, that's funny that you know that this user is banned.
Yeah, this one, they were so abusive over the years, and this was during the time that I was actually on those forums. Had so many complaints that it took such a long time, despite those screen grabs that you can see, and they're still live today as far as I know. It took a very long time, and I really had to break every rule in the book to get them banned.
Gary, did you go back to the forums after the manual penalty got resolved?
No, because the manual penalty only really got resolved when the refresh happened for Penguin in about November time, October, November, and by that time, here's what's the result of this is that so much of the advice I got from the top contributors conflicted what the answers John Mueller gave me. So in the end, I gave up even asking for the advice on the forums because I've got examples of where I was told one thing and I asked John and the answer was actually another.
Yes. Well, speaking of Mr. Mueller, I have a post from him here. Don't know if you can read it, but he mentions, well, welcome to the forum, blah, blah, blah. And even John Mueller has to get in here and say, also, guys, can you please calm down and remember the posting guidelines? It's fine to discuss sites that you have strong feelings about, but please focus on the sites, not on personal attacks.
Yeah, absolutely. And so they are very much aware, although there are probably only about just a very few handful of people that have that Google blue kind of badge next to them to show they're actual employees. they only come in at the absolute last moment, and they allow a lot of other things to kind of happen on the forums, and they're never cleaned up. I've only seen recently that they've started to remove some very abusive comments.
Well, let's look at some more here. We have another one here. Here's one from this person. They say, blah, 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 everyone comes here for reasons to get support. And then they say, we can't fix stupid, and we can't fix the criminal.
But this guy really helped you, Gary, right? I remember seeing this name a lot as it being...
Actually, that particular user really did, and it just goes to show that you kind of almost have to sometimes catch that user on the right day, or present your details in the right manner. I mean, if you called up a call center, and this is Google's argument is they don't work for them, but if you called up a call center and you happen to catch one of those guys on a bad day, and they start slinging abuse at you, that's not, you're supposed to be able to be above that. And if you have a look at the terms and conditions about being a top contributor in Google, and you read some of the things, they say specifically avoid doing what most of the posts that you're going to see today actually show. So they have to have a level of professionalism to earn the post that they are commanding.
Do you feel that this person crossed the line, that they're implying that some of the people posting here, presumably the person who posted the problem, that they're either stupid and or criminal?
You know, this is the difficult thing, is that this particular user really helped me, and you know, and now I'm left in a situation where we're looking at this, and I have to say one thing or another. But
well,
I think anybody reading that couldn't argue the fact that it shouldn't be there.
Do you think that this is a piece of evidence to show a pattern of kind of elitism and arrogance on part of the Google top contributors?
You know, that's what happens. It seems to be, and that gang mentality, when that starts, it's we rule and you do what we say, and that generally seems to be the tone. If you don't like what we have to say, then tough. I mean, there's examples where a particular user has said that they basically fixed the upvote and the downvote. So people downvoted a particular top contributor, and all the top contributors came in and upvoted it instead. So, right. You know, what is being achieved there, other than showing that you know, you don't like the authority? Well, tough.
It kind of reminds me of high school.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, well then let's look at another example of support from the Google Support Forum. Here's another interesting one. I don't really know. Can you guys see it?
Sort of.
Yep.
Sort of.
Yes,
okay, so you can see at least what's highlighted there. So I don't really know what is exactly going on here, but the comment I want to look at, you know, so this person, this Google Talk contributor, is saying that this other person is spamming, and then they threaten them, don't spam or we'll get your domain name at the top of Google, I imagine, and it'll be next to spam and scam. Now, I don't know about you guys, but it really seems to me that this is a threat of negative SEO, that will fill out a rip-off report or will fill out a scam report for your brand name if they continue spamming. Am I reading this correctly? Is that what's going on here?
This is one small example of what you see. That kind of behavior is said a lot, and it shows that they're trying to show we have the power to speak to the right people, and if we can find any reason to do something to you, we'll make that happen. When quite possibly that person came in for some help. I mean, the only reason people come into this forum is to get some help. Whether or not they've done something wrong, they have interpreted how the internet should work, and you know, and have built a business that maybe doesn't conform to the guidelines. They're concerned, they're having problems, and they've come in and they've exposed themselves. the real black hat spammers won't bother. They will get rid of their site and it will start again. The people coming in here are genuinely concerned and possibly confused about what is right and wrong.
Right. Yeah, and you're absolutely right. I mean, people are going there for help. And I would just like to point out a small thing. You know, there's this kind of growing mentality, as I said, that the spammer, it's used as a pejorative, and that Google's guidelines are somehow moral guidelines or ethical guidelines. And it's interesting that actually John Mueller himself, in years past, he would say publicly, Google is not the moral police, quote unquote, and fully say, you know, you guys can do whatever you want. We're not the moral police. It's not a moral issue. He used to say that years ago, but he's really stopped saying that. And Google really has tried to push in the last few years how they think their position is a moral position, an ethical position, and they're morally right and they're on the high road. But it's you know, one, I deny that entirely. They're not the moral police. But two, it's in fact very difficult for them to maintain that position when you see the kinds of actions that are going on and people on their behalf are abusing other people in this way.
Sure. I mean, I think one of the things that I find aggravating is that there's two mindsets going on. One is Google says, look, these are top contributors. We don't employ them. They're not, you know, we're not responsible in some ways for what they say. But the problem is if you compare that to what they say about paid links, you know, the idea is Matt Cutts released an article that said a paid link doesn't have to be a financial transaction. It can be a benefit. It can be an exchange of goods or services, etc., etc. If you then apply that to the terms of what it is to be a top contributor, you could assume if they're going to say that that is what constitutes as a paid link, then you have to apply that to these top contributors being paid by Google in the same form. And if they can't adhere to those same rules, then you know, it's a huge double standard. Right.
Well, Google is very quick to critique, you know, people who are costing them money, quite frankly, black hatters and spammers who are making, you know, millions of spam pages and making them crawl them and costing them money. Google is very quick, and Google's top contributors are very quick to critique that.
Yeah.
But when it comes
I would argue that Google's paying. I would argue Google's paying the top contributors to be there.
Well, there is some interesting evidence that that might be the case that I'm not at liberty to divulge, but yes, those rumors have definitely gone around. Let me just put it that way. Here's another example.
Instead of rumors, though, if you have a look, like I said, at the what it is to be a top contributor, they give you, you know, they write it right out there. They say that we give you X, Y, and Z. You get to contribute in different forums. You get to come down to meetings. You get to, you know, your little swag bags and things, all kinds of different things. So it is exactly the same as what Matt Cutts is saying about paid links.
Yep.
So they are paying them. Forget about maybe there's an idea they could be paying them with cash or whatever else it might be. The fact is they are paying them in the same way that we are supposed to be comparing paid links.
Yeah.
And that is in plain sight.
Yeah. And then we do know they get flown out. You know, we know a number of top contributors. And as I said, they're not all bad, but we do know a number of top contributors who do get flown out to Google and do have private meetings. And yeah, so there is an interesting connection between Google and the top contributors. Let's just put it that way. Here's another good example of the kind of support you can get on the Google product forums. These are actual examples. So here's a person. I don't know if this is a top contributor. I believe they are. And they're saying to this person, and again, this is their words, very rude and mean. Let me guess, whoever this person is, they misspell they use the possessive yours as opposed to the contraction you are. You're a sad, pathetic loser, slightly overweight, no friends, probably very young, and if not, then you act very immature. And yeah, and blah, 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 you've never helped anyone in the slightest. And they can go on to continue insulting them.
Your shared screen is not showing, by the way.
Oh, it's not?
No.
Oh.
I see it, actually.
Here
now I have it. Yeah.
Just in case someone wants to read that and see, yes, I didn't make that up. That's from the product forums.
Yeah. Now, obviously, that is just a level 9 contributor, although they've managed to get themselves up to that level. the more concerning part of that is that the person who is a top contributor is responding to those comments, allowing them to stay, and agreeing with that user. And if I believe I remember rightly, they may have been one to also have upvoted it.
Yeah, so you're talking
And
about this person
so
right
that's
here.
the gang mentality there.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. You know, yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. Yeah, but this person definitely didn't call it down. I mean, I think this is beyond the pale. I mean, clearly, this is insulting. This is intended to be insulting. This is internet trolling. This is bullying. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. There's no other way you could interpret this area, this section here that I've highlighted. It certainly isn't. I mean, you can debate whether or not it's ethical or appropriate. It's certainly not professional. It's certainly not the kind of actions you would expect to find on a professional, company forum.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Who is a top contributor? They're definitely not calling it down. They're definitely not saying there's anything wrong with that. And in fact, they're calling down the other person,
yeah,
and backing up this other top contributor. So, it definitely doesn't look good.
yeah.
Steve, do you have any opinion about that?
Just 1 second.
He's thinking about his opinion. All right, and so the next one is that's all the ones I have. So that's all the examples I have.
There are some incredibly bad ones that they're mind-blowing. What some people have said, and there's also a lot of responses out there from general sort of level 1 users who have come on there for help, who are calling out 1 or 2 specific people continuously, saying that you're being rude, you're not being helpful, you're offering nothing in return. You're that's the kind of thing, it seems to be very prevalent.
What is the response from the top contributor from that challenge? What is the response from the top contributor from that challenge?
Yeah. Are you asking me?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, what do you mean exactly? Sorry, I'm not following you.
Well, after so these people come onto the forum, and if you have any specific examples there, it'd be nice to look at them. But
yeah, I'm not quite sure how to share that on my screen. I sent you most of those screen grabs as well. But you see, what ends up happening is, as soon as anybody calls anybody out who's a top contributor, even if they are absolutely categorically wrong, they will always stand by their own, no matter what.
Right.
Apart from someone like John Mueller, who will, as we've seen in one of those screen grabs, that says, "Hey guys, you should calm it down." Otherwise, there's group mentality. There's a response here that says, that's my one contributor saying that's my post, and this other top contributor has marked it as the best answer. So they're grouping together to get the results that they want. One of the top contributors said, it's an entrance exam website, and the other top contributor replies, entrance to fail, seems legit. So they're simply forming their opinions of what's this website about, looks illegal to me, and I'm just going to call it out as such, with no foundation or basis. Something that happened to me that was very concerning was that I was called out by one of those top contributors as owning some SEO company.
Right.
The name that I think I sent you the link, but it was some other Gary with a completely different surname that didn't even live in the same country, and it said, oh yeah, look, now you own, and that caused multiple posts after that. Oh look, he owns an SEO black hat company. No wonder he's in the situation he's in. And now suddenly we've got derailed and a story going off in a completely different direction, which is a defamation of character in some ways, just being called out there. And some other person's poor website and business, who may have been doing very legitimate white hat SEO, has just now been thrown under the bus because for some reason they felt like they found some association.
Yeah, which was entirely ridiculous. You didn't have the same last name.
Sorry,
no,
it was
absolute madness.
Yeah. Sorry,
Sorry,
Steve.
I was on the phone there. I was just thinking, what about this as a takeaway for Google, or just an idea to improve the quality of the forums? What if when you post, you could block certain top contributors from posting on your, when you either by post or by your whole account? If you just say this person is never helpful, I'm just going to block them from ever being able to respond to my posts.
Yeah, I'm politely asking them to leave this conversation.
Yeah. Did you ever try that tactic? Did you ever try that tactic, Gary?
Oh yes, absolutely. But that just the people who are causing the trouble are there to cause the trouble. That's why they're there. And as soon as they can see that they're getting somewhere, then they step it up. They ramp up the bullying.
What do you mean, Gary? Are you implying that they're of their own psychology? That's why they want to be there, is to bully, or are you suggesting?
Yeah, I mean, there's one particular user who is very well known for doing it, and their comments are consistent with that theme. One of them, that person says, if I didn't get called some name at least once a day, I think I'd be losing my touch. And then they continue to go through. It says here, I've had a horrible week, mostly because the Scrum Master at my work hasn't contracted AIDS and died yet. I mean, how can you post things like that as a top contributor? It's mind-blowing to me. And yeah, I'm just looking through a few of the other posts by this particular user.
I remember
I've been trolling the internet way too long for it to not have happened to me. It's nothing to do with... it's just all these constant responses, like, I'm only here to cause trouble, basically.
Yeah, so they're bragging about it.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's just disgusting behavior. And it doesn't help any.
After receiving that level of support, do you feel you'd go back to the product forums? Do you feel they're worth going back to?
Well, never. I mean, and the problem is that once you've made an enemy, which is sort of happens immediately, they're waiting, ready to, to look up your name and jump straight on to anything else you have to say. Even if you come on and say something very positive or whatever else, you're just immediately just battered by the same people again.
Right. They'll pretend to be your conscience or your prostate or whatever.
I mean, absolutely.
Sorry, Steve, go ahead.
Well, sometimes they're just very linear thinking. Like, you guys have some pretty extreme examples. Most of mine, though, is, they just give you cookie cutter answers. So I just think it would be still worthwhile to be able to hide those posts from certain top contributors because you want someone with a different point of view to answer. See, the last post that you had, or the last screenshot you had showed there, that person tends to respond to all of my posts and always kind of answers the same way, and sometimes I just like somebody else's spin on it, right? Right,
just to get a different perspective, because presumably they're not being helpful.
Josh, do you have the screenshot 108 that I sent you?
Screenshot 108. I can try and find it if I can remember.
It's a great example of exactly what's happening almost behind the scenes in some way, and it just shows how there is this kind of mentality that they don't have to behave. And then when they're angry, they bring all the rest of their crew along to back them up.
Okay, 1 second. Okay. Yes, this is a top contributor here. Okay, I'll share this screen, and you can guide us through it here.
Yeah.
Because I didn't actually read this one.
Yeah, I mean, some of them are really bad, but you see, this particular contributor is saying
this is a top contributor, one of the top contributors.
Absolutely, and definitely has good days and bad days, and that's exactly what's being said here. I used to be much more of a hothead, but I'm working on my temperament. I just regress a bit of times, but truly, sometimes it's necessary. If everything is sugar-coated, then there seems to be repercussions for being an idiot and no repercussions for being an idiot, I seem to get even less respect. Funny how that works. Celebi, one thread at a time, right? But then she goes on to say, but when I truly go boom, oh goodness, you'll know. And I'm bringing Christina Weber doing Lysis with me. It will be a total mean insanity. Who am I missing? And you know, that's a really good example of exactly what happens. Who are you to go boom? You're supposed to be there to either help people or simply say, you know what, this person isn't worth helping, goodbye.
It almost breaks down into a rep.
Yeah, and then say, right, okay, you know what,
not to denounce the entire industry of rep with this post that she's making, but you know, she's going to bring her homies with her, you know, and clearly she's saying it's going to be mean insanity that they're going to go off on people for things, whatever they believe they have the elitist right to go off on people for.
Absolutely, and look, the person she could be replying to could be the worst black hat spammer scum of the earth, for all we know. But that doesn't mean that this is the right approach to take.
And she fully admits it. She's admitting that she's used to be much more, to use her words, quote, a hothead, and she's working on her temperament. So she realizes that working on her temperament probably is a good idea. At least that's what I'm getting from this. Am I reading into it?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly, you know, exactly the point.
So I think this is, this is pretty terrible, quite frankly. I mean, it's not surprising at all. We all know that internet trolls exist. It's just that I don't think the internet trolls realize they're internet trolls.
For sure. I think there's one more to take a look at that's very important, and that is the 124.
Number 124. Okay. There's so many of these. You sent me so many examples. I didn't have time to look at all of them.
Yeah, and some of them are really shocking. You should take just a moment when you get a chance. And they're fairly. Some of them are fairly old now, obviously, and but it doesn't change the fact that my experience happened 4 years ago and has led up until now.
And as I said, sometimes I have trouble using a Macintosh, and so I can't tell what the heck I'm looking at here. Now I just moved it somewhere and I can't find it.
Yeah.
Where did it go? Oh, here it is, I think. Okay, hold on. You mean this one here?
Yeah, it's quite a long one with a red symbol at the top.
Right. Okay. All right. I think I have half an idea of how to use my Macintosh and what I'm doing here. Okay. I'll let you run through this one as well here.
Absolutely. So, you know, the premise of this post is somebody who's been around for a very long time and is a level 9 and has had a lot of respect from a lot of the top contributors. But the thing that it says here is that he thought a problem would sort itself out, or they did, and he says that they can offer 3 concrete, undeniable examples where top contributors did posts that definitely broke the rules of being nice, taunting or insulting members in good standing in the community. Yes, I am very guilty of getting down in the gutter with those same individuals to voice my complaints of abuse from the guilty parties. I have done that because the situation has progressively become worse and a bully must be met on her own ground using the bully's own tone or rules of engagement. It clearly seems the TCs have been given free rein to heap abuse upon any member in the community without fear of reprisal from other members of the Gmail community forum staff. I'd like to know why this problem has thus far been ignored, and I'd like to know if anything will be done to correct the horrible and progressive worsening situation, etc., etc., etc. And this is somebody who's been around for a long time and is at level 9.
So, sorry, 1 second, Gary. So I just want to reiterate. They said it clearly seems the top contributors have been given free rein to heap abuse upon any member in this community without fear of reprisal from the other members of the Gmail community forum staff. That's fairly damning.
Yeah, and remember, this person is just a level 9. They're not a top contributor, but they've been around a very long time. And if you have a look who they are, they're closely connected and and they're friends with those other top contributors in a way, from that forum itself, and they're not somebody that had been there, for the reasons of they're having problems with their site or et cetera, et cetera. They were there to generally help out as well, if not probably try and gain a top contributor status. But they've noticed that there's an issue, and they've spoken out. And there's numerous responses to this, and they never really got a good answer, and nothing really got dealt with. But it just highlights the absolute problem we're talking about today.
I agree. So we're joined now by Tommy Sands. Tommy mentioned he had something he wanted to say. Go ahead, Tommy. Please, no swearing or porn.
No, I would never. I am a top contributor in the AdWords community.
Oh, good.
So, I don't know how I found this Hangout, but I thought I'd, take a look. And this is not an unfamiliar topic to me, especially about this specific forum that most of its discussion is about.
Right.
I just kind of wanted to throw out there that, I don't believe that's the experience across the board in all of the Google, forum support channels. A lot of this is pretty disheartening to me from the perspective I take, and I feel like, the other AdWords, top contributors, I think, we have a bit of a different approach, and it's probably more along the lines of, I think, what you guys are hoping to see from the webmaster folks. But it's not a consistent thing, and, not that it's here nor there, but it's, I just wanted to say that, right? You mentioned, Google forum support, right? There's a lot of products and a lot of forums out there, and this is not indicative of the experience everywhere.
Right. That's a good save. That's a good point.
I'm not disagreeing, and I absolutely, this isn't about your area of the forum. It's very specific to one particular area, and that is that it's around penalties, and the people coming in to all these other areas that need help, whether they're coming in about AdWords or just general questions where there really should be no form of abuse that anybody would be doing something wrong in order to get that response back. If I had problems with my email, or I had something, some help I needed with any Google products, it's very unlikely that there would ever be a need for somebody to be abusive back towards me. The problems that we're having are in a very specific area, and that is that it's related to your own personal website when you're having problems, and that is when the abuse is directed back. And I would say a very high percentage of the time. So I'm sure in your area, everybody's really nice, but they're not dealing with people who are trying to break the rules. And of course, there's always going to be people who have created a website specifically for AdSense, and then they're concerned as why it's disappeared, or why in their country they're not allowed to have AdSense, and they're going to lose their mind over it.
But is that really the point? I mean, again, Google's not the moral police. However much some people at Google, and it might be the public relations strategy of Google spam team to pretend they are. It doesn't really matter what people have done. I don't see why anyone on that forum has the right to call down anybody. Tommy, let me ask you this. Is that the kind of support you would like to get on the Google forum, or the kind of support that on the AdWords side you provide?
No. And, with an asterisk, I'm sure there have been points where I may have crossed a line, so to speak, but I don't believe I've ever directly tried to insult somebody or used some of the language that you've covered and talked about today. You mentioned about penalties, right? We have a whole section of situations with AdWords suspended accounts.
Of course,
okay?
Yeah.
And it's a very relatable topic. And we have a couple of top contributors who are very well versed in policy, and they do their best to try to get to the point, right? Here's where we think you're violating a policy. We don't know, right? Likely, maybe the webmasters do or don't. I can't really speak for them, but we only have so much insight into the policy and how it works and flows, right. And most of that is in the help center. It's just our interpretation of having dealt with hundreds or maybe thousands of instances, and you sort of, you start to figure it out. Oh, you're talking about, losing 50 pounds in 10 days, right? They're unrealistic claims, and that's what you need to work on. That's what you need to look at. Those sort of things with suspensions on the AdWords side. But, I don't want to really get too deep into this. I'm familiar with a lot of what you're talking about and the characters and whatnot, and I don't think it's indicative of a majority of the TCs. It's an unfortunate problem where it is now with the webmaster stuff, and there's certainly been a lot of debate and topic about it. But I just wanted to come on and share and say, hey, it's not everywhere. Come over to the AdWords community. There's a lot of great people there. Even if you're having troubles and you're suspended, and you're likely to get help long before you're going to get insulted.
So you said you're not a Google employee. You're a Google top contributor on the AdWords side.
Yep. Yeah, I can answer top contributor queries if you have some to the best if I can. About the program and that kind of thing.
I find it interesting that you dropped right on in here, but none of those guys dropped on in here to admittedly defend maybe a little bit of the Google forums.
Well, I'll tell you, I saw the title of the Hangout, and I'm admittedly a bit of a fanboy for the most part, right? However, I'm not an SEO, so I do very little with that side of things, and I can understand how having to deal with that can be challenging. But
AdWords is just as challenging as you said. I mean, there's controversy, there's blacklisted this, and rules.
There is a lot. There is a lot. But I saw it and I said, I'm gonna go take a peek at this. And then as things developed, and these are threads I've read, they're discussions I've been a part of offline about why are other TCs potentially doing such things and acting in such a manner. And personally, I question the same thing. It's not what I signed up for. I don't think those are the type of responses that you'd probably expect from the top contributor. That said, again, with the I don't know what those guys are dealing with. They've been around probably a lot longer than I have, and I'm not saying it's right. I don't think it's right. I don't believe it's the right way to respond. But it's
Steve,
not something I would do.
Sorry, Tommy. Steve, did you have something you want to say?
Well, I was just going to ask Tommy what he thought of the idea of, say I'm posting in the AdWords area, and I've already seen a lot of your responses to my type of question. What do you think of the idea of me being able to block a certain top contributor from either seeing or commenting on a post? Do you think that the overall user experience might be improved by that type of change?
See, I would look at that and say that, instead of implementing something like that as a solution, the likely better solution is to remove the people that, are causing you to even feel that way, right?
But maybe that would help Google discover which top contributors are not providing the best quality of service for their customers.
Potentially, I'd never rule anything out, right? Like, Google's an ever evolving, and they're constantly looking for feedback, and I can only really speak to the experience I've had in the AdWords community. And there's always trolls, right? They're gonna be everywhere. There's gonna be people that want to test the limits and keep pushing and claim that Google's frauding them and they're stealing their money and all those kind of things. And I think for the most part we all try to keep our cool and try to be logical and say, look, none of us would be running our businesses based around this product and this kind of thing if that was commonplace, right? If everybody was losing money and being frauded, and we all run successful campaigns for our clients. It's okay. So I don't think we have as much of a scenario where somebody would say, oh, I'd never want to hear from this guy again, or this girl, or this
I'm just thinking on, even on a specific post, because I guess it's a less exact science when you're talking about things that are affecting rankings. Just sometimes what that person's going to say, and you want the opinion of another top contributor.
It's a very interesting concept. It's an interesting idea. Yeah, I know I would feel bad personally if somebody, if I don't know how that would work right for me, right? So say you didn't want to hear from me, is that post removed from my site, or am I just blocked from replying? Like, that would hurt my feelings personally,
I just want to say, sorry guys, I just want to jump in there and you can keep talking. The viewer count is really going up, and I don't know if this is filtered out into the top contributors. By all means, if they want to come on here and any other top contributors want to come on here and talk about it, we're open to talk about it as long as everyone promises to not swear and not have any porn on their screen, which sometimes happens when people come in here. People are welcome to join in and discuss this. If you have a view, if you agree with us, if you disagree with us, but by all means, come on in. However, I find that quite sadly, whenever I invite some of these internet bullies or trolls or just top contributors to come in and discuss these things, people who've been very vehemently discussing, let's put it that way, they typically don't want to come on to Hangouts and do a face-to-face thing. It's unfortunate. Dare I say, maybe even a little cowardice, perhaps. Maybe not. But anyway, you guys were discussing.
I had a question actually for Tommy. I was just wondering that if you saw another top contributor posting something that you thought was inappropriate, would you moderate that?
I can tell you that I think, there's sort of two paths, right? There's one that you're potentially maybe either, misunderstood, the original post, or you confused, some concepts, and potentially you're posting information that isn't, 1,000% accurate, right? And I don't want to say I'm a victim of that, but I've done it myself, admittedly, right? I'm never always right? You make mistakes, and we self-moderate in a sense where, another top contributor might come in and say, hey, you know what? I think you might have been incorrect here, and here's why, and this is potentially a better way to go, that type of thing. Or, we have behind-the-scenes boards where we can discuss these kind of things. And, fortunately, there haven't been too many real issues on our side. But often they'll be hashed out behind the scenes and sort of, taken an approach from there rather than in public, if need be, that kind of thing. But it's few and far between from what I've ever experienced with AdWords.
So this is interesting. You guys have behind-the-scenes closed private boards that only top contributors can post to?
Yeah.
And read?
Correct.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's very clearly stated in the sort of information about being a top contributor, and one of the benefits of doing that. Actually, if you have a look at the terms of what it is to be a top contributor, I've got numerous screen grabs of.
So we've been joined by a fellow. I'm not even going to try to pronounce this fellow's name. If you want to join in, if you want to say something, please just no swearing and no hateful comments. But if you want to join in, you're welcome to join in. You're muted right now if you're trying to say something.
Yeah, my name is Mukut. Hi guys.
Hello.
Yep. I'm just trying to hear you guys. Like, what sort of problem are you guys facing around? Yeah, that's all.
I'm sorry, you didn't really come through there.
Yeah, I'm saying I'm trying to hear you guys. What sort of problems are you guys facing and all? So, just trying to understand. That's all.
I'm sorry, I can't really understand what you're saying. Do you mind typing in the chat?
Sure.
I understood that. Please type in the chat. All right, thanks, Tommy. Tommy said he has to run. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tommy.
Yeah,
Appreciate you coming in and showing a brave face. We're friendly.
Showing a friendly face from the Google top contributors. That's a good thing. It's good branding. Okay, well, this fellow who types in the chat, Gary, Steve, do you have any final comments of what you want to say? Again, we have lots of viewers. If anybody wants to join in and talk about this stuff, by all means, you're invited to do so for the next 5 minutes or so.
Yeah. I mean, I've got a thing from the Google top contributors forum here that says top contributors have direct access to Google product teams, Google community managers. They can participate in top contributor only events, Hangouts and private discussion forums. Through these events, top contributors get to participate in discussion topics that interest them and build relationships with Googlers and with other top contributors. So it's very clear that there is an area behind the scenes that is of benefit to the top contributors and perhaps some inside information. And in some ways, you have to imagine that if you have a look at the resumes of a lot of these top contributors, they own their own businesses, and they are using the skill set that they have to progress that in the top contributors sort of area. So for them, they're getting the inside information. They wouldn't want to rock the boat because it would directly impact their own businesses. So if there was something that they didn't agree with that another top contributor was doing, or et cetera, it would put them in a difficult situation to kind of point out the bad, when really they want to maintain their position, a lot of them.
Well, that's interesting. Are you implying that? No, I'm just trying to follow your stream of thought. So, are you implying that maybe top contributors shouldn't be SEO consultants? That there's some kind of conflict of interest?
I believe there is a conflict of interest. Absolutely. You know, now that we sort of throw that out there, yeah. I mean, it's very difficult for them to then be objective without risking their own personal business. What if they were to lose their top contributor status because they called somebody out on something? There's a lot of risk that can be taken that they may not want to do.
So, are you saying that the solution would be that if you're going to be a top contributor, you can't get paid money to do SEO? Kind of like if you're going to be a Google employee, you can't get paid money to do SEO?
No, I think that the reality of the situation is that to have the authority, you should be a Google employee. Otherwise, there is always going to be a conflict of interest. You can't stop people from having their own business on the side or doing certain things. It just goes to show that the process itself has some serious flaws.
Right. And it is very interesting that Google has these product forums, uses it as a front line of support, references people to it, directs people to it, gives benefits to these top contributors. It flies them down to Google, has meetings with them, has a private forum that only they can post to and talk to, barely gets involved when clear cases of abuse and defamation of character type things are going on. But at the same time, they're not, but says, oh, they're not Google employees, we're not liable for anything they say, we're not responsible for anything they say. This advice is all given, both go to the forum and get help and supporting the forum, at the same time saying, we don't support the forum because they're not Google employees, and we don't support anything they say or believe in anything they say. Do you feel that's a double standard or hypocritical or not?
Yeah, that's been my problem from day one, which is why I ended up on the Hangout with John Mueller, because he was the only person that you could actually speak to and physically get a response, and he's one man supporting the whole world's problems at the moment, which is it's ridiculous. He's amazing to be there and has helped on numerous occasions. And as I said, he's actually helped me in situations where the top contributors have been 100% certain that they were correct about what they're saying, for me to only go to John Mueller and find out the opposite. So one of them delayed me 6 months of getting recovered. One particular person said something that was completely wrong.
Right, and this is not a trivial problem. I mean, 6 months of your site not ranking for some businesses means that business goes under. Those people lose their jobs.
Absolutely. We're very thankful that we have a very, very good business. We've been around for 11 years, and we don't rely on Google for our survival. But it does have it's a huge market to not be involved in for us. So absolutely, 6 months will destroy most companies. Most people who have got problems just don't exist anymore. That's why you don't hear from them anymore.
Right. I just want to say we've got a lot more viewers watching right now. If there's anybody out there who wants to join the Hangout, by all means join the Hangout. We're discussing Google Top contributors. We're discussing Google support. We're discussing how well it works and some of the benefits and pitfalls for it. And you're welcome to join us and discuss it, especially if you want to defend Google. We've had one top contributor come on from the AdWords side. We've had no top contributors come on and try and defend Google or defend what's been going on from the webmaster side. Steve mentioned earlier you had an idea where it'd be interesting if you could have a mechanism actually in the forums by which you can say, I don't want responses from these people, or I want to block these people from, I want to mute these people from this post, I want to mute or block these people from this post. And he mentioned, because, and Steve, I don't mean to put words in your mouth, you want to say it again by all means you can, but he mentioned that it was because he just wants to get different answers from different people, and not necessarily that he wanted to block or mute abusive people, but that, of course, is a logical extension of the idea. And Gary had mentioned that it might be just you could simply type in your post, listen, so and so, I don't want to hear from you. Your answers are not useful, or so and so, I don't want to hear from you. Your answers are abusive. Gary, have you tried that tactic? Do you think you could use that tactic?
Yeah, no, I've tried that tactic, and then that obviously completely derails the conversation, and that's the end of it. Basically, you might as well start a new thread at that point. Okay.
Well, just to play devil's advocate, and I've certainly been victim of it. Everyone's been victim of it. Again, I'm going to play devil's advocate now. Aren't you guys whining a little bit too much? Aren't you whining a bit too much, Gary? That isn't it just internet bullies and internet trolls, and you're going to find them no matter where you go, and you just gotta suck it up. You just gotta tough it up a little bit, Gary. Because there's going to be internet trolls and bullies all over the place, and they're saying abusive things, they're saying unethical things, they're saying unacceptable things, but just suck it up and stop complaining. What would you have to say to something like that?
I would say that Google's quite a large brand that should probably represent themselves in a better manner. When it happens in the schoolyard or something like that, those kids are, they're not behind.
Oh, and he's been silently taken off the internet by and he's gone. Okay. Well, Steve, do you have anything you want to say?
Well, just onto that point, it just shows that there's an opening for another service that that's going to provide useful feedback. And I mean, that's why I join these types of Hangouts that aren't necessarily hosted by Google. You get different perspectives, and you get people that are going to look at it more objectively and not necessarily with any kind of slant or bias. And so in a way, it's a good thing that Google maybe sucks a little bit in this area, because they can't completely monopolize every aspect of the internet, just because obviously they can't hire people to be nice all the time. They have to rely on user input, right? So
that's an interesting point. But just to play devil's advocate to that point, I mean, yes, they can. they have $40 billion of profit. If they want to, they could hire 100 people pretty easily to run their product forms. They could be employees, don't you think?
I guess they'd be more liable for the answers that they give.
Right, yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, I suppose that's the problem, is that Gary just chatted with me, says he couldn't join on. You got booted. I didn't boot him. He's been mysteriously booted. Hey, Murphy, how you doing? Do you have a microphone? Do you want to say something? Murphy's chatting stuff, and he says, yeah, he mentioned another top contributor who I know, and is a very nice guy, and yeah, I know, I consider him a friend, and yeah, there's definitely some good stuff that goes on there. Murphy says he has no microphone, but yeah, there's definitely good stuff that goes on there for sure. I mean, hands down, good stuff goes on there. There's good top contributors. There's good people on there. And so it's definitely. I don't think anyone here has been trying to say that it's all bad. But at the same time, Murphy's mentioning that at the same time there are abrasive people, and even the good people can sometimes be abrasive. And so maybe it's just a case of people, power. Absolute power corrupts absolutely, maybe. and as Nietzsche said, and when you look in the abyss, be careful the abyss doesn't stare back into you, is the actual Nietzsche quote from Birth of Tragedy, I believe was the word. Or it might have been Will to Power, one or the other. Sorry, Nietzsche's one of my favorite authors. So Gary has texted me here and said he's not allowed to join the call. He's been booted by the internet gods, maybe. I don't know what's going on there exactly. And now he's got the conspiracy theories going on here. So I'm just going to close it off. So thanks very much, everyone, for joining. This has been SEO Hangouts. Sorry.
Make sure you tell Gary to post his problem in the forums.
Oh, nailed it. That was perfect. There you go. I couldn't have said it better myself, Steve. Thanks very much. So this has been SEO Hangouts. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you, everyone, for joining in. Join us next time, where you never know. It could be SEO help. It could be SEO philosophy going on. You never really know. So thanks very much. Guys, if you have anything final to say, now's the time.
Well, thanks for hosting, Josh. Do you have a second to talk offline after this?
Sure, no problem. So thanks very much, guys, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.